Imagine being abandoned at birth, rejected by the very people who brought you into the world. Now imagine rising from that pain and rejection to become one of the most influential minds in human history. This is the story of Steve Jobs, a man who didn't just build a company, he built a revolution. But behind the iPhones, iMacs, and all the glory was a storm of failure, betrayal, obsession, and loss. Let's go beyond the Apple logo and uncover the story of the boy who refused to give up, even when the world turned its back on him. Steve Paul Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco. His biological parents, Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah Jandali, were young college students. Pressured by society and their families, they gave Steve up for adoption. But fate had a strange twist. A blue-collar couple, Paul and Clara Jobs, adopted Steve and raised him in Mountain View, California. Paul was a machinist, and Clara was an accountant. Steve always knew he was adopted. And though he loved his adoptive parents deeply, that early rejection left a scar he carried for life. As he grew, so did his curiosity, especially about machines. His father taught him how to take apart and rebuild electronics in the family garage. It wasn't formal education, but it was deeply impactful. Steve saw beauty in design, in precision, in how things worked beneath the surface. School bored Steve. He was too quick, too curious, and too unconventional for traditional learning. He pranked teachers, challenged rules, and often got into trouble. But despite this, he was undeniably brilliant. In high school, he met Steve Wozniak, a shy genius obsessed with electronics. The two instantly connected. Woz was the engineer. Jobs was the dreamer. Together, they made a team that could turn imagination into reality. They even created their first product together, the Blue Box, a device that allowed users to make free long-distance calls illegally. It wasn't exactly ethical, but it showed them the power of invention and the market. In 1976, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne founded Apple Computer in Jobs' parents' garage. Their first product, the Apple I, was a simple computer kit. It sold modestly, but it was the start. The real breakthrough came with the Apple II. With its color graphics and sleek design, it became a commercial hit. Apple's IPO in 1980 made Jobs a multimillionaire at just 25. Jobs became a public figure, a young tech prodigy, charismatic and visionary. But success fed his perfectionism. He demanded the impossible from his employees. He wasn't just building computers, he was shaping culture. Then came Lisa, a computer named after his daughter. Jobs initially denied paternity. The situation was messy, and Lisa grew up largely without him. But despite personal contradictions, his professional ambition soared. He dreamed of a user-friendly computer for the masses, and that dream became the Macintosh. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh with a legendary commercial during the Super Bowl. It was bold, rebellious, and very Steve. But behind the scenes, things were crumbling. The Mac was innovative but expensive and underpowered. Sales didn't meet expectations. Jobs clashed with CEO John Sculley, whom he had personally recruited. Their visions diverged, and the board took sides. In 1985, Steve Jobs was ousted from Apple, the company he had built from nothing. He was devastated, angry, humiliated, but he wasn't done yet. After Apple, Jobs founded Next, a sleek, expensive workstation company aimed at education and businesses. It was beautifully designed and way ahead of its time, but commercially unsuccessful. However, Next software would later become the foundation of macOS, proving that Jobs was always thinking decades ahead. In 1986, he bought a small animation studio from George Lucas for $5 million. That studio was Pixar. For years, Pixar struggled. Then came Toy Story in 1995, the first fully computer-animated feature film. It was a game changer. Steve became a billionaire, and Pixar changed Hollywood forever. Through these ventures, Jobs refined his leadership, his aesthetic, and his philosophy. Late 1990s, Apple was in crisis. It was bleeding money and losing relevance. In 1997, in a desperate move, Apple acquired Next, and with it, brought back Steve Jobs. He returned not as a savior, but as a warrior. He slashed unnecessary products, simplified Apple's vision, and re-energized the team. Then came the iMac, colorful, friendly, and unlike anything else on the market. But that was just the beginning. In 2001, Jobs introduced the iPod, a tiny device that could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket. It transformed music. In 2007, he introduced the iPhone. It was more than a phone. It was a computer, camera, and communication tool all in one. Then came the App Store, the iPad, and a complete reshaping of how people interact with technology. Jobs wasn't just selling gadgets, he was selling experiences. He understood that design mattered, that simplicity was powerful, that emotion was everything. Under his leadership, Apple became the most valuable company in the world. But greatness came at a cost. Jobs was known for being ruthless, firing people in elevators, berating employees, and obsessing over the tiniest details. He denied Lisa again, later accepting her into his life but leaving emotional wounds. Even at Pixar and Apple, people both feared and admired him. He was charismatic but intimidating, visionary but volatile. His need for control sometimes pushed people away, but it also created magic. In 2003, Steve was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. He refused surgery at first, opting for alternative treatments. That decision may have shortened his life. Still, he worked. He launched the iPhone while battling cancer. He gave one of the most powerful commencement speeches ever at Stanford in 2005, talking openly about death. "Your time is limited," he said, "so don't waste it living someone else's life." In 2011, he stepped down as CEO of Apple. On October 5, 2011, he passed away peacefully at home. He was just 56. Steve Jobs didn't live forever, but his ideas did. He taught us that computers could be beautiful, that simplicity is genius, that creativity, when fused with courage, can change the world. He was a rebel, a tyrant, a visionary, a flawed human being who dared to dream differently. This isn't just the story of a tech mogul. It's the story of a man who fell and rose again, over and over. This was Steve Jobs. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And maybe that's what the world needs more of. People crazy enough to think they can change the world and then actually do it. Just like Steve Jobs. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Got thoughts or questions? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more fascinating stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload from the world history.